again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of 7 Days to Sunday, presented by FanDuel. As, of course, we recap the Bills' big win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Look ahead to the game against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. But there was a thing on Tuesday called the NFL trade deadline, as I welcome in, of course, Tulsa Football Hall of Famer, former Bills offensive line standouts, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the pride of Philadelphia, Mr. Jerry Ostroski. What's going on, my friend?
Keep going. You're doing good.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything else, but, man, I'm doing
great
good.
Humanitarian, a credit to society, big Flyers fan. Tell me when to stop.
Adopter of lost animals. Yeah, I got you, man. No, it's going great, Zig. I appreciate you as always. It's been good. A little disappointed right now, obviously. Buffalo Bills don't make any moves in the trade market as when the deadline hits today, 4 Eastern. Bills are off the board. Especially when you see some players that maybe you thought might have an opportunity to come to Buffalo. Obviously, Brandon Beane did not feel that the juice was worth the squeeze, so to speak. And I'll say this, I hope he's right. Because it sure would have been nice to have an addition outside in the wide receiver position. Obviously, that hasn't happened, but some really big trades across the league today.
Yeah, and a couple involving an AFC East rival here with the New York Jets and a couple of premium draft picks from not that long ago. Sauce Gardner, the outstanding corner. And I think people in the know, Jerry, didn't see this one coming. He winds up going to the Indianapolis Colts for a pair of first-round picks, and then maybe about an hour and a half later, the bombshell, Jerry loves his headlines down with the Cowboys. And he winds up getting a pretty damn good defensive tackle in Quinnen Williams, a 26 second-rounder, a 27 first-rounder, which I believe is going to be the Dallas pick and not the Green Bay pick that'll be heading to the New York Jets for Quinnen Williams. So the Jets look like they're rebuilding in a big-time fashion now.
Yeah, I want to touch on both areas. I mean, obviously, let's start with the Cowboys. And, anytime – you lose a star player, got a generational type talent like Micah Parsons, your fan base is pretty upset. Obviously, Dallas lately has had a lot of that happen. In basketball, it happened. And Luka Doncic was gone and sent to L.A. But you got to think about it this way. The difference is this. Jerry, for all the negativity and backlash he does get, and a lot of it is rightfully so, there are cases where he does a good job. And you think about this. You trade Micah Parsons, and you turn this into Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and a first-round pick.
Yeah.
That's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
You think about strengthening that defense. Quinnen Williams, all right away. You put him next to Kenny Clark, also a Pro Bowler at the defensive tackle position. They're that much better inside against the run. They've had some young players emerge. The young pass rusher out of Boston College,
Ezaraku,
has been playing really, really well. So, when you look at the money that they were going to have to tap into Micah Parsons, and this is what they get in return, I got to take my hat off to Jerry. I give him props. Well, he does a good job.
And let's not forget, too, for those who followed the Cowboys, and I did for many, many years, the December numbers over his career weren't great. And then in the playoffs, Jerry, only one career playoff sack. So maybe now he's on a better defense in Green Bay. So maybe doesn't have to be the man, but those are, I think, some pretty strong considerations.
Exactly. And then the other thing is you got a very, very strong personality. And I think that's what you saw from the Jets moving, not only Quinnen Williams, but really it had a lot to do with moving Sauce Gardner. I mean, this is a guy, Aaron Glenn doesn't mess around. Aaron Glenn is a team guy. He's got a way that he's going to build this team. He's going to build it like Dan Campbell built the Lions. And he has things that he believes in. And Sauce was either on the train or he was off it. And obviously they felt that they needed to move him. And when you look at this, again, you got one player making all that money because he just did redo his contract not too long ago.
Yep.
And you move him and you pick up a 26 and a 27 first-round pick and you remove that salary off of your salary cap, pretty good deal for the Jets. So I think that even though these are two marquee players, how do they really fit into the whole scheme of things with Aaron Glenn and what he's trying to do? I'm surprised that Woody Johnson allowed this to happen. But you know what? Maybe Woody finally is
Lower that.
of listening to the highlights,
Lower that.
listening to some different things to where, he's been in the middle of all this stuff, and maybe he's finally decided to stay out of it.
Yeah, agreed. Cowboys also acquired Logan Wilson, who had been demoted by the Bengals, but still a productive linebacker out of Wyoming, a 7th-round pick there. Jerry, I thought maybe the Bills were going to look possibly at receivers, as it was. One of the candidates was Jacoby Myers, but he's now property of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so it looks like a conditional 4th-round pick and then a 6th-round pick. And the other receiver that had been mentioned was Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. And I thought it was a real nice move on the Seahawks' part. 4th and 5th rounders in this upcoming draft for a guy who is pretty productive for his size.
Yeah, you got to really like what Seattle's doing. We do our power rankings every Tuesday on our radio show, and I had the Seahawks number 1 today. Bills 2, Seahawks 1. I mean, that was a dominant performance out of them the other night. You look at Shaheed, I mean, as far as the receivers that were available or were known to be possibly trade candidates, to me, Shaheed fit the bill the best for Buffalo out of all of them. I wasn't super excited about Jacoby Myers. I know he's a man beater, but he is a smaller receiver.
Right.
Shaheed, though, his profile, downhill, take the top off of it, also returns punts. I thought that fit would have been really, really well. Now, I say this. I think that Brandon Beane tried to make some moves today, but for whatever reason, they're just really, really tight to the picks. They don't want to give up anything. They don't want to give up capital. They think that it's more important than adding a player. That's probably a whole nother episode of 7 Days to Sunday about theories about
Exactly.
what you want to do and not do. But personally, when I look at this offensive team for the Buffalo Bills, the offensive side of the ball, the way they run the ball,
right.
I mean, you just have tons of opportunities outside because they're taking so many people in the defensive secondary and adding them to the box, to the run fit to try to stop the Bills run and James Cook, that you've got one-on-one opportunities outside all the time. We just don't have somebody right now that's able to take advantage of those opportunities. Maybe when Palmer comes back, maybe he's that guy. But if you put Palmer all of a sudden with a stretch to field guy, you really have something. So like I said, to start this whole thing off, Zig, I hope Beane's right, man. I hope the decision he's made, he knows something more than the rest of us. And, he's comfortable with it. So we'll see.
Exactly. We continue with 7 Days to Sunday, sponsored by FanDuel. Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. Draymond Jones from the Titans to the Ravens for a 5th-round pick. That's conditional. And, of course, you're from Philadelphia, and the Eagles continue to be aggressive. I mean, this one was done, I think, yesterday or the day before. Jalen Phillips, who can get after the quarterback and also, play well enough in coverage. He goes to the Eagles for a 3rd-rounder in 26. And let's not forget here, Jerry, before the last time we chatted, they already got Jair Alexander from the Ravens and Michael Carter from the Jets. So Howie Roseman never stops trying to tinker with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Obviously, they found they had 3 areas they feel they needed help. Obviously, cornerback's been an issue most of the year. They wanted more pass rush. They coaxed Brandon Graham out of retirement to come back. And now they go ahead and they get Phillips. I just think that at some point, Zig, and what's interesting is people ask, well, how can they afford this? Well, void years. That's how they afford it. I mean, they kind of gamble on futures. Mm-hmm. They look at the salary cap. They try to speculate where it will be at a certain time, and that's where they push contracts to where they believe that these will fit in that year. And, I think that this is something because we try to make it seem like the cap is this hard number, right? And we try to make it seem like it makes everything fair for everybody. And really it doesn't. The teams with money are still the teams that are doing what they're doing. The teams that don't have money are still not making trades and things like that. Right. So I'd have to think at some point an ownership's going to have to look at these voidable years and this salary cap management that's kind of iffy by some of these franchises and try to rein that in.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you're looking at, what's left per se on like Phillips's contract for this year because basically Miami's paid about half of it anyway.
Right.
So that, there was, I think Daniel Popper was reporter from The Athletic, had a really good about 2-minute video posted on X, Jerry, that explained the anatomy of how these trades work. I think he broke down the Gilman and Owafe trade with the Ravens and the Chargers and how that basically worked in terms of salary. I got to ask, the Jets were on the fire sale. I suppose if Jerry Ostroski's the GM, would you have tried to maybe get Garrett Wilson, or was it too much of a cap risk to try to do that?
For whatever reason, and it seems to me anyway, that this Jets franchise and especially Aaron Glenn really like Garrett Wilson. And they want Garrett Wilson to be a part of this future, in New York. I think that there was a lot of teams that called about the availability of Garrett Wilson, but they just didn't want to get rid of him. They didn't want to move him on. So, I personally, if I'm the GM of the Jets, I don't want to move Garrett Wilson. I think he's a really good young receiver. You just got to get better quarterback play, and you got to get some continuity, and you got to get some stability in that offense. And I think as long as Woody Johnson doesn't get impatient and he allows Aaron Glenn to work his plan, they'll get there. How soon that will be, I don't know. It's a lot easier for them now with 2 first-round picks in 26 and 27 to add to what they already had. So obviously, building for the future in New York, and I commend them for it. I think it's good moves.
And the thing is, though, you could have all the first-round picks that you want, but ultimately you got to hit on it.
Right.
Right. It's easy to say, some people are already looking, the 27 draft's going to be loaded.
Right.
How do you know? It's just one of those things. But again, the Jets have been just so putrid for so while. Before we break down the game against Kansas City, just give me a quick thought. Was there a guy that you thought maybe the Bills could go after that maybe even wasn't, Jerry, one of the so-called rumored names that we've been hearing for the past week or two?
No, I think rumored names are probably what I was hanging my hat on. Shaheed was one of them. Of course, Chris Olave was another one. And I think
he would have cost a first rounder.
Right. And then the other one that I think probably cost a first rounder, at least a second rounder, and probably was a pipe dream, but I got a little bit excited when I saw Jacoby Myers go to Jacksonville, is Brian Thomas Jr. And thought maybe that, maybe he's expendable.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have been for the right price, but obviously them playing Travis Hunter more as a receiver than a defensive back, and him being out might have led them to going to make the Jacoby Myers move. But no, I'd have liked to have possibly seen Brian Thomas Jr. in the mix along with Olave and Shaheed. And I'm just glad that the one thing I am happy about, Zig, is don't make a trade just to appease the fan base.
Right.
So basically what I'm saying is just because the fan base is hellfire and brimstone that you got to make a trade, that you go out and take a subpar wide receiver or a guy that's really not going to do the things you want to do, or maybe did him at one time, just to appease the fan base. If you can't get a home run or somebody that you really, really want, just sit back, because let's face facts. We're going to talk about it. They just beat the Chiefs at home 28-21.
Right.
And they're 6-2, and they're half a game out of first place in the AFC East.
Right.
This isn't like this is a team that's fighting for 500. This is still a very good football team. And so I think you have to also keep that in mind as well.
I do. So while we transition, why don't we get a snack along the way? What do you think?
Sure. I think I'd love a snack. Talking about football makes me hungry, and the best place to go when you're hungry is the Anchor Bar, the home of the original Buffalo chicken wing. Started in Buffalo by Frank and Teresa Bellissimo in 1935, I believe. They invented the chicken wing in 1964. A chicken wing that you can get at the original location, always fresh, never frozen. Big jumbo wings that are fried and sauced with your favorite sauces that you can also get ordered and sent to your home if you don't have a supermarket like a Wegmans or something close by that carries the Anchor Bar sauces. And then also they have, I believe it's now 17 franchise locations across America, including Frisco, Texas, Tucson, Arizona, where John Fina he spends his Buffalo Bills Sundays at the Bills Backers Bar in Tucson, which is the Anchor Bar. But if you go to the Anchor Bar and you don't want wings, they have everything else like pizza, beef on weck, salads, wraps, everything that you need. Great food at the Anchor Bar. Check them out, and we are proud that they're a sponsor of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network.
Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous having them along, as well as FanDuel sponsoring 7 days to Sunday. So, all right, a lot of criticism, even though the Bills hung 40 on Carolina because the passing game didn't look good, this, that, and the other. To me, this past week, Jerry, Allen looked sure with his footwork, okay?
Yeah.
And hitting those tight ends, I thought, was pretty big. Still needs some work in terms of trying to find those receivers, or even Josh just having confidence in them. Cook had his yards. And remember I said a couple weeks ago I need to see more out of Joey Bosa? That looked more like the Joey Bosa I remember from Ohio State and early in his career with the Chargers, because he was a man among boys on that D-line.
Let's talk about Josh Allen first. I think that Josh, while he looked a lot better, still had a few moments that he missed some guys, turned down some throws, might have left the pocket a little bit too soon. But all in all, a much better Josh Allen performance, a performance that gave him the highest completion percentage of his career, and I think the highest completion percentage in Bills franchise history.
88.5.
Yep, going 23 for 26 for 273, had the passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns. But again, we can talk about Josh Allen and all those things, and he is, like I said, he's our catalyst, and he's highly, highly important to what we do offensively. Still, the machine and the engine that makes this thing go is the running game of our offensive line, and James Cook, 114 yards rushing on 27 carries. I thought that offensive line played brilliantly. They did a really good job in protection as well. Now, there were some issues, but those issues were sending backs out, bringing extra guys. I mean, it's just what we do in Buffalo. I think if you remember, there was a first down throw, kind of a swing pass to Ty Johnson, where he picked up 8-9 yards for first down. That was a built-in hot read off of a blitz, and it went to perfection. They hit it. They get the first down. But, offensively, this is what you expect to see out of the Bills. 12 personnel, 13 personnel, sometimes 14 personnel. And Reggie Gilliam is doing a wonderful job of being one of those guys that's able to be a lead blocker, and some power schemes also solidify the backside. I'm really happy to see what he's doing. Of course, Hawes has been tremendous as a rookie. But, right now when you look at this offense, Dalton Kincaid, he is the catalyst. And I think, when he was hurt and we had some issues in Atlanta and those types of things, he comes back last week at Carolina and more on a pitch count. They cut him loose this game, but just a really good performance out of that Bills offense. But I'll tell you, I've never seen a performance defensively against Kansas City like Buffalo had on Sunday ever. I mean, this is a completely different Buffalo Bills defense, and how they played, the level they played, the excitement and the physicality they played at. This defense for the Bills was absolutely lights out.
Well, they sacked Mahomes 3 times. I believe it was a career high 15 times he was hit. I mean, they were battering him around pretty good. So I love the physicality. I love the addition of Hairston in that secondary. The only spoilage that this was, unfortunately, Jerry, was Michael Hoyt, going down with the Achilles. And once I saw that, I'm like, good grief, because he was really starting to make his imprint on that defense.
If you watch Hoyt play, he plays with a joy. He plays with excitement. He's physical. He's really, really cerebral. Watching him on the All-22 has been a treat to watch. I mean, you'll see him. He'll turn his head one way to get eyes going the other way, come back this inside. He tries to manipulate blocks. His techniques and his skill at grabbing wrists and elbows in the pass rush, haven't seen much like it in quite some time. And losing him when we did is probably, I would say this, and this is going to be crazy. It's as big, but maybe bigger than Ed Oliver. That's how much he's brought to the defense in a short amount of time. And it's not just his play, it's just his presence and his attitude.
And his winning background, too.
Right. And his winning background. So, he was a big part of the fact that the Bills pressured Mahomes 52.6% of the time. 20 of his 38 dropbacks were pressured. We've never seen that.
No.
In the way they played in dime and nickel, where they used in the nickel formation, they used their 3 guys, and then Hoyt standing up. In dime, they brought They brought Dorian Williams in, and they manipulated the middle part of the field with kind of a double spy technique. And then they let those – when you do that, the thing that is awesome about having that done is it allows your outside rushers then to be free. You're not box rushing everything. You're not, attacking the outside shoulder, trying to get compression to keep Mahomes in. You're actually letting those ends rush free because you've got those two guys on the inside to clean everything up once he gets pushed through the middle. Just a great game plan by Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbage Jr. And then again, things we've never seen before in this matchup, Zig. I'm watching Xavier Worthy run down the field, and there is a guy in a Bills uniform that is stride for stride, step for step right next to him. And I know that sounds silly, and people are like, well, I mean, these guys – we haven't
Worthy's
seen
a track
that.
guy, basically.
Right. We haven't seen that. And Hairston coming in and doing that, getting his first interception off of Patrick Mahomes. That was probably as exciting to me as anything because we've seen the Bills win this game with good offensive performances,
right?
In spite of the defense. This was a complete team butt whipping, and the defense played as good or better than the offense, and that's something we have not seen, and that's what got me so excited about this win this week.
Did you get a little nervous though after the missed field goal? They got the ball down to the 40, knowing that it is 15 on the other side.
I didn't. I thought that clock management was proper, and I thought that clock management was really good. If it's not the fact that there's 21 seconds left at that yard line, he doesn't kick the ball. He probably, goes for it. Now I was probably more nerved up for the possibility of a blocked field goal than I was for them not stopping the Chiefs, because just statistically speaking and the way you play that, I wasn't worried about it. And then the other thing, after I saw the first snap, I was like, hell, this is going to be great. Instead of going into true blue prevent form and rushing 3, we rushed 5 guys. I mean, we got after Mahomes. That last Hail Mary, he never was able to step into that throw and get it to the end zone because he had guys in his face. And just, I can't say enough about this. I think that people, they get so tied up into players and matchups and schemes and coaches' calls and things of that nature. This game still comes down to its simplest form. It's still blocking. It's still tackling. It's still about toughness and physicality. And this was a team on Sunday that not only was the tougher and more physical team, that Bills coaching staff out-coached Andy Reid and his staff.
Sure did.
And, there are a few things that the Chiefs didn't do that I'm still puzzled about, but you know what? We'll worry about that on a later day. But it was just a great all-around performance.
And, oh, by the way, a look at the standings, Jerry. The 3-time defending AFC champs are on the outside looking in.
I know.
Playoff. How about that?
I think that's the biggest thing that nobody thought about. It's like, yeah, if we lost, it's our third loss, but still it's our third, and we still have a chance. You're
still in there, yeah.
And claw back in, and we have a chance to right the wrong of 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when we lost to the Patriots. We still have that opportunity to right that wrong. Right. But when you look at the Chiefs now with 4 losses in a division with Denver that's got 2 and the Chargers that got 2, and they're 3 games out of first place?
Yep.
Or at least 2 out of first place. It's like they've got to be perfect here on out. I mean, it's one of those deals where they probably got to win out to be able to solidify or really make a case that they're going to make the playoffs. And we're not talking about 1 seeds anymore with Kansas City. We're talking about wild card opportunities.
That's right.
And, I know that Denver hasn't been, and I know you're an old Vegas guy, so you'll love this term. I know if when you go to the SP plus rankings, okay, which is what the what they use to kind of talk about the tempo and how these wins look and all that, right? Which Vegas uses all the time. Denver's not in the top 10. They're probably about 13th or 14th, right?
Style points,
right?
Yeah.
The style points have been ugly.
Yeah.
The Chargers, they've been ugly, and they need some help offensive line wise. That's why they went out and got
Penning today, right?
Yeah, yep. Penning today.
Saints.
Former UNI Panther.
That's right. Yes.
Yep. You and I fight. But it's like, I don't think anybody realizes just how big that was. And again, and this is the other thing, Zig, that I want to talk about is I get tickled about people that say, and Jeremy White from GR said this today on the radio, and I heard this. Jeremy's a good friend of mine. We do a show with Joe Marino, and
Sure.
He said, you know what? He said, I'm not one of those guys that says, oh, the regular season doesn't matter. Heck with the regular season. We want to win the playoff game. The regular season does matter. Do you think it matters to the Chiefs that they lost their 4th game? Damn sure does. Do you think it matters to the Bills that they implied or they deployed a game plan that we've never seen before that they used against the Chiefs and it worked and they now know they can beat the Chiefs doing that? Do you don't think that matters? I mean, regular season games matter, Zig. They really do.
Well, not to sound like Captain Obvious, but if you don't succeed in the regular season, there is no playoffs.
Right. But you know what I'm talking about.
They're
there's people like, they'll get in. The regular season, the Chiefs are just hiding stuff. They're not running their full offense. You're crazy.
That's crap.
Now, there is one thing they didn't do, which I can't believe, and that's I felt like sending a spiral cut ham to Andy Reid to thank him. It was why they didn't try to run the football more is beyond me.
Yeah.
I mean, our defensive tackles
Pacheco was out, but still.
It don't matter. You still got Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
And you got the other guy. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. It didn't matter who you had running the ball.
Right.
It's tough right now up the middle for us on defense. And, I commend those guys for their effort, but it's just tough. And I'd have thought Kansas City were going to run the ball a little bit more, but maybe the game dictated they threw it, whatever it is. So thanks, Andy, for not running it more. I appreciate that.
Yep. Still sending the ham, though. So. Now, there you go. 7 Days to Sunday is sponsored by FanDuel, Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. Now you see the Miami Dolphins once again, this time down in South Florida. Of course, the Bills won the Week 3 Thursday night matchup. In a game I thought Miami played pretty damn well, but Bernard, that interception late against Tua, they won 31-21. But since then, Jerry, their season in Miami has gone to hell in a handbasket. They're coming off that tough loss to the Ravens on Thursday night. Lamar looking like Lamar in his return. And then after that, Chris Greer, long time in the organization as a scout and then 9 years as the general manager. He's no longer there. They kept McDaniel, and there's intimations, Jerry, that maybe McDaniel's there to stay. So that's going to be, if indeed that's the case, I know we want to get to the game here, but if McDaniel's there, then whoever is hired as the GM, you're inheriting the coach. That could be a slippery slope, can it not?
A very slippery slope. And the other thing you're probably inheriting is the quarterback.
Yes.
If you kept McDaniel, to me, the reason you're keeping him is because cap-wise and money-wise, you have to keep Tua for at least one more year.
Right.
And we all know that Tua is probably the most perfect quarterback for the McDaniel system. A timing system, an anticipatory throw system. It's what he does. Does he have a huge arm? No, but he is able to read things, get the ball out quickly. He's smart and all of that. I find it interesting, with the upheaval of the franchise. You talked about Greer being released, son of longtime New England Patriots GM Bobby Greer.
Yep.
I don't know if you said that or not. Did you say that?
I did not.
Okay.
And then his brother's Mike, of course, played the NHL.
Yep, played for Boston University. Yep.
How about you with the hockey? Yeah.
And he runs the Sharks, obviously. But, you got this franchise in upheaval. You don't know how the players feel about keeping McDaniel. We've heard for a long time that he's lost the locker room. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe that's why you trade Jalen Phillips and maybe get rid of some of the undesirables. But, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But, Buffalo obviously coming off that 28-21 win. You look at the EPA per play right now, the Bills' offense is plus 0.12. They're in a top tier of EPA. Dolphins are in the bottom tier at minus 0.10 through week 9. Two teams going different directions. And you'd have to think the key matchups of this game, obviously, Zig, are the Bills' running game versus that Dolphins front on defense. It hasn't really gotten better. They've made draft picks. Kenneth Grant, he was picked from in the first round from Michigan. They're still having troubles stopping the run. And then you got the Buffalo secondary. Another key to this matchup is the Buffalo secondary against Jalen Waddle and all of that. So it's, and then your third key to this matchup is you've got Tua back there who we know has issues taking hits, and you just watch the Bills pass rush bring the heat against Mahomes to get him on the ground and hit him more than he has in his career. how does that bode for Tua as well? So those three areas are something I'm really looking at. Bills run game versus the Dolphins front, Buffalo's secondary against Waddle and those receivers, and then, of course, the protection of Miami to try to keep Tua upright against that Bills pass rush. It should be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the kid from Penn State, Robinson, was making some progress as a first-round pick, but then he was concussed in the game against the Ravens. A couple guys I really like, and I'm surprised maybe he wasn't dealt. Bradley Chubb.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy can still bring it off the edge in terms of a pass rush. Jordan Brooks is a real stud in terms of being the linebacker. They brought Minka Fitzpatrick. So there's still some tools there. And Achane as a running back, not a lot of people talk about him being an effective runner, Jerry, but those might have their hands full with Devon Achane on Sunday.
This guy does. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I think he is a stud. I get more nerved up about Achane than I do anybody else on that team. Everybody wants to talk about Waddle and all this. I'm like, the heck with Waddle. You got to control that running back because not only is he good, he's not overly big, Zig.
No.
He's not as wiry as James Cook, but they're similar. They're not very big backs, but he's got that ability.
5'9", about that, yeah.
Slithers through, and then also he's so dangerous out of the backfield catching the ball, and they utilize that very, very well. I think he's more the catalyst to that offense when it's right than, say, Tua or Waddle or anybody else.
Agreed.
And he's a really good player. But, I would have to find it hard to believe that they did not field a lot of calls in Miami today for Chubb, for Waddle. I'm sure people called to ask about him. But Obviously we've talked about it. If you're going to keep Mike McDaniel, you can't get rid of everybody. And them not dealing all these guys today kind of shows maybe that commitment to McDaniel for the long term, or at least another year while they have to, eat more cap space with Tua. So it'll be interesting. But I look at this game, Bills, FanDuel line of the game. They're favored by 9.5 points. Over-under is anywhere from 49.5 to 50.5, according to FanDuel. I think that, this is a game that the Bills should win. If they are who we think they are after last week, they should go down there and take care of business. Of course, you expect some offensive production from Miami. But, I say that, but I don't know. The way this Bills defense played last week, I expected the same thing out of the Chiefs. And, there wasn't much.
No, there wasn't at all. So, and obviously you're the Bills and you're not going to obviously look past this game because even though, you would think that they're so favored to win this game and that they took care of them the first time and that Miami does seem to be in disarray. Sometimes, Jerry, you could tell me better than anybody. It's like one of those games, well, you should win.
Right.
You can't coast in there because those are the type of games that if you have that attitude, it'll get you beat.
We like to manufacture trap games as fans, but this honestly is a true trap game to me. When you look at what it's sandwiched between, it's between, the Kansas City Chiefs, which we know what they're all about. Right. Then after this Miami game, you got Tampa Bay at home and Baker Mayfield coming to town with Ibuka and the likes. So to me, if you start thinking ahead, this game can become an issue. The other thing it's an issue, I don't care what anybody says. You look at the temperatures, they're not crazy, but in Florida, these temperatures are different than they are anywhere else. I mean, it's going to be about 74 degrees.
Yep.
So it will be not like, easy bake oven hot, but it's going to be warm. I mean, and there will be some heat down there and there'll be some humidity. And I wouldn't doubt if it doesn't rain 1 hour to 45 minutes before game time for about 15 minutes and then it stops and the sun comes out.
It bakes more.
Right, and it bakes more, all those things. So it is different playing in Miami. It always has been. It always will be. But, I expect the Bills to win. And like I said, those kind of keys to the game, I really look at that Bills run game against that Dolphins defensive front that just hasn't gotten much better. Obviously James Cook is offensive player of the week in week 8 after that 216-yard day, then had a big day again this week. And then, of course, we want to talk about the revamped and the Bills secondary trying to control Jalen Waddle. Obviously Hill's hurt. You don't have to worry about him. Waller's out. But Waddle's still a explosive focal point for this Dolphins offense. And, you also don't know what you're going to have in Taron Johnson. Is he going to be back or not? Right. They might be without their their top nickel back again the second week in a row. We'll see what happens as the week goes on. And then, of course, this revamped pass rush, can they have the success that they had against Mahomes against Tua? Because Tua, for all of his, things that he doesn't do well, one of the things he does do well is gets rid of the ball quick. He's not going to take many hits. So it's going to take you getting there, winning at a quick rate to get to him. And I think the biggest thing with Tua is, Zig, it's not necessarily getting him on the ground, it's getting him off his spot.
Yes.
He's such a timing oriented passer. If they can get him moving and off of his spot, that'll affect the play as much as a sack.
And you mentioned that game in 2 weeks coming, or the following week, I should say, against Tampa. I got to think that's going to get flexed somehow. I don't know if they keep it in the 1 o'clock window for CBS, because I think the only game, if I looked ahead to the schedule correctly, that CBS would have late would be the Ravens and the Browns. So there's a chance I think that game could ultimately get flexed. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see.
Do they flex games that early in the season?
Oh, yeah. They've already – well, if they don't change it to like Sunday night, they'll switch times of games, which they've already done this year. Right. I think there was, a San Francisco-Tampa game a couple weeks ago that got flipped to 4:25. Cool. So, yeah. We
could see that. But we're about done for 7 days of Sunday. Obviously, trade deadline comes and goes. Big victory by the Bills over the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. And then we got the Miami Dolphins, the Fish to look forward to. Squish the Fish as always. Zig, any last thoughts?
Nope, everything's good, my friend. Again, good win for the Bills. They can't, like you said, look ahead because Tampa is on the horizon, a very good team out of the NFC. And, oh, by the way, New England keeps on winning, although they got a monster break with that missed extra point because Atlanta had them on the ropes this past week. But New England continues to win, and great job for Vrabel. Again, the Jets clean house, and Miami could be a tricky game if the Bills let it be on Sunday.
And sad to say, looked at the wire this morning, and John Parker Romo was no longer the kicker of the Atlanta Falcons.
See what happens? Yeah. Well,
anyway. So for my man, Zig Fracassi, I'm the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. We appreciate you as always. Thank you for watching, listening. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, tell a friend, rate a show. If you can't catch us on YouTube, we are on all major podcasting platforms. And as always, folks, thank you very much.
Yep.
So Zig.
Get me, by the way, at Zig Sports Voice on X if you ever want to communicate that way. So
thanks for saying that.
You're
Zig
welcome.
Sports Voice. You need to check him out. He's got some good stuff, except for when he's crying about the Bruins, which has been often this year. Which is most of his content. It's most of his content.
Not quite, maybe 90%. But
much love, folks. Go Bills.
All right, brother. Go Bills.